Center for the Ethiopian Educational Information and Communication Technology presents Educational Satellite Television Programs.
Hello, teacher. Hello, students. Welcome to today's lesson on changing the subject. Previously, we studied the plot of a film to determine details about its genre, characters, and settings. In this lesson, we will explain how to use a variety of social expressions to change and come back to a subject of conversation. Are you ready, everyone? Let us get started. There are many situations in which a person may change the subject of conversation. However, in order to remain courteous and ensure clear communication, we use a variety of social expressions in English to move from one topic of conversation to another. Let us take a look at some examples. Here, Solomon is speaking to Hannah about his favorite subject, Hollywood films. He has just seen Casino Royale and is sharing details about the film with her. Solomon says, "Hannah, I think Casino Royale is my favorite movie. I thought the acting was excellent. I also really enjoyed the chase scenes. If only I could drive the same car as James Bond does in the film." Hannah is suddenly reminded of something she wants to tell Solomon. She is very excited but does not want to be rude. So she says, "Speaking of cars, my father just bought a very nice convertible. I'm sure he feels like James Bond when he is driving." Solomon laughs and says, "I'm sure he does. Before I forget, you can rent the film at my shop in the market if you want to watch it." To change the subject, Hannah said, "Speaking of," which is an expression that connects the first topic of conversation with the second. This way, the change is not too abrupt. To change the subject back, Solomon said, "Before I forget," which is a polite way of telling Hannah that there is still something he would like to say about the film. Let us do an activity. You will be provided with a list of social expressions that either change the subject or come back to the subject. Create a sentence using each expression in the right context. You may get started.
Students, let's get ready. Begin. Time's up. Let's get back to our lesson.
Welcome back, students. Let us now look at some examples to make sure you have used each expression correctly. Speaking of is a term that changes the subject. We could say, speaking of the weather, I heard a storm is coming this Friday. The next expression is used to come back to a subject. An example might be, returning to what we were talking about, the price of petrol is expected to rise again this year. The term, by the way, is used to change the subject. In a conversation, we might say, by the way, I saw your brother in the market yesterday. We might come back to the subject by using the term, anyway, as I was saying. An example is, anyway, as I was saying, I was waiting at the airport for my flight to begin boarding. Another way to come back to the subject would be to use the expression, can I just go back to? In context, this might look like, can I just go back to talking about this map of Addis Ababa for a moment? I want to make sure everyone knows where they are going. Were you able to use all these expressions correctly? If so, excellent work. Now that we know the correct situation to use these expressions, let us do an activity to practice using them in conversation. Working with a partner, choose a topic from the list provided. One of you will lead a conversation on the topic, and the other will interrupt and change the subject. Then, the original speaker will interrupt once more and come back to the first subject. Repeat this process 2 or 3 times. I will see you in a few minutes.
Students, let's get ready. Begin. Time's up! Let's get back to our lesson.
Hello again, students. I am sure you had some interesting conversations during this activity. Let us discuss one of the topics together to see how these social expressions can be appropriately used. For this example, we will discuss sports. We will say that Ceicteth and Jonas are avid fans of football. Ceicteth says, "Did you see the game between Brazil and Ecuador last night? That was one of the best games I've ever seen. Alexander Pato made 2 incredible goals." "I did see those goals," Jonas says, "but I did not catch the entire game. That reminds me. We have a practice for our football tournament after class." "That's right. I almost forgot," Ceicteth says. "It is a good thing you let me know." Anyway, as I was saying, Pato scored 2 goals and the keeper was barely able to keep up. "I can believe it," Jonas says. "Pato is one of the best. Before I forget, what is his all-time record again?" Anyway, as we were saying, students, these social expressions make transitions between different subjects much clearer and easier to understand. By the way, Pato has scored 69 goals so far in his career. This concludes our lesson for today, everyone. We have learned how to use different social expressions to both change the subject and come back to the subject. We learned some of the most commonly used expressions and discussed some different situations in which they could be applied. In our next lesson, we will practice our listening skills by studying the plot of a film. Until then, thank you, teacher. Thank you, students.